All right, welcome back everyone. We have 8.7 transforming sine and cosine again, except for this time we are doing vertical shifts. So we're going to be shifting up and down. Now your learning goals are to vertically shift sine and cosine functions. You know, who would have thought? And to introduce this, I'm kind of trying to keep things the same so we can just visualize kind of the new information here, right? So, you know, our phase shift was the horizontal shift, right? And that's still the same. We're still going to be using phase shifts, but we're going to be adding the vertical shift. Now, if you notice in the last lesson, we had the plus d variable out here. We didn't talk about it. Now we're going to. If you add a number to the outside or subtract a number to the outside, you will shift it up or down. Now, the weird thing is sometimes you might see it in front. So you might see it as d plus or, d plus here, okay? So keep that in mind, all right? Okay, now, what does this look like on an actual graph? I think you guys will understand it, but if you have a sine function like this, it could then be up here, or it could be down here if we shifted it down, okay? Same thing with cosine, which starts at the amplitude like this. It could have been, this would have been the original, and it may not even cross the x-axis anymore if we shift it up or shift it down, okay? All right, let's take a little pause. Let's just really quickly see what this looks like in Desmos, because this will mess with how we interpret our amplitude, okay? Okay, so here we are in Desmos, right? You can see that we have a sine function graphed here, and if we increase the d variable, we see it go up. If we decrease it, we see it go down, all right? Now the amplitude, notice the amplitude is still the same. It's just a little bit harder to think about, right? If you look at this sine function here where it's d is equal to 3, if you were just given this graph and you weren't given the equation, before we would look, well, what's the number that it raises to? Well, here it raises to 4, right? But that's not the amplitude anymore. That only worked when we didn't do a vertical shift. Now you really have to compare the numbers that it gets to in the midline, right? The midline that cuts your graph in half. So this does still have an amplitude of 1, right? Which is what that a value was. So be a little careful when you look at them from the graph first, okay? Okay, so we're back to our graphs here. We're gonna do one without a phase shift, okay? And then, then we'll start doing it with the phase shift, okay? So everything's gonna seem, pretty much the same, okay? We identify our amplitude, it's 2. We find the period, right, which is 2 pi divided by b, which here b is just 1, so our period is 2 pi, okay? You're gonna graph that part first, all right? So I go to my graph, I have all the way out to 2 pi. I create my segments. All right, and I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's even go up to 5 here. All right, I'm including all, a little bit more because obviously there's gonna be a shift here, right? -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. All right, so this is a cosine function, so it starts at the amplitude of 2. It's gonna cross, it's gonna come back, it's gonna cross, it's gonna come back. All right, now, to vertically shift this, we're just going to all of those points and raising them up 3 places, okay? Now, that sometimes it's a little hard to draw, I would say, like this segment raised. It's a lot easier, obviously, to do these points, okay? And keep in mind, this was supposed to go right through there, okay? What I suggest doing is first kind of shifting up your midline. So if I draw my midline here, which is right at 0, 0, my new midline should be up 3 spaces right here, okay? And now I can kind of think of this like it's the axis again, and that midline is where it should be crossing and coming back through, okay? So in blue, I'll do the new graph, right? So it started at 2, it should start at 5 now, up here. Now when it gets to pi half, it should cross my midline, just like it crossed it before. So crossing my midline, all right? Now, it went down 2 below the midline. You see that because the amplitude? And so that should be true here. It's 2 above, 2 below. So it should only go down to 1 now. All right? Because that's everything is raised up 3. So it should go down to 1. Come back up, cross, and go back up right here. Now, it wasn't perfect, right? You could see that, kind of could have gotten a little bit closer to 1 there. This should really have been going down there, all right? But that's kind of how it is with drawing them. So this is kind of the steps you want to take. You want to draw just your original function with the amplitude. If there's a phase shift, you should do that next, and then do the vertical. I highly recommend drawing your midline out, okay? It just makes it easier to see where it should cross, all right? Okay, so that's one. Let's do another one. Now, if you look at this one, you can see our D value is in front, all right? And we did that on purpose because a lot of the times you're gonna see that there, all right? Now, the number that we, because obviously if it's a plus D, it's going up, it's a minus D, it's going down. This minus has nothing to do with the vertical shift, okay? It is this one to the left of 1 that tells you that. So that's a -1, so this is going down 1, okay? We see a -2, so it's being reflected. We see, obviously that's a 2, so it's being stretched by a factor of 2. And we have a B value of 3, so we're also, adjusting the period, okay? But we're not adding, a C value, so we don't really have a phase shift, okay? So let's go ahead, let's kind of do it as normal, right? Our amplitude is 2, okay? But again, there is a reflection here. So I'm going to write that in. All right, our period, we calculate 2 pi divided by B. All right, B here is 3. So now it's 2 pi divided by 3, okay? And I'm going to write that we just have a vertical translation of -1 or just down 1, all right? So that has everything. That's a lot more stuff going on. We're still going to start really, by graphing this portion first and then dealing with the vertical shift, okay? So I have a period of 2 pi over 3. I need to divide that by 4. So 2 pi over 3 divided by 4. That becomes 2 pi over 3 times 1 over 4, right? I see that I have a cross, a 2 and a 4, so that can reduce to 1 over 2. And so I get pi over 6 as my segments, okay? So I'm going to draw this out. I got 2 pi over 3 here. Got half, quarter, quarter. So that's pi over 6. That's pi over 3. And remember, the reason why this one's pi over 3 is because technically pi over 6 plus pi over 6 gives you 2 pi over 6, which reduces to pi over 3, okay? And then this third one here would be 3 pi over 6, which is also just pi over 2. And then we get to 2 pi over 3, okay? Now, we do have an amplitude of 2. I'm going to draw just a little bit extra numbers because we are shifting it up and down. Okay. And it's going to be going down instead of up first because it's reflected. Okay, but it's still starting at the original point. So let's do this in blue. We're starting here. We're going down to -2. We're coming back, crossing, 2, coming back. Hold on, I did the right, cosine, edit cosine function, just making sure. Okay, trying to catch my errors, all right? So, everything's looking good here. Let me just double check. We did the period correctly, right? We have an amplitude of 2, all right? Our midline's right here in the middle because it hasn't shifted yet. And we started down instead of going up first because it was reflected with that negative, all right? Now, we're gonna deal with that going down 1, okay? So I'm going to draw my midline first. If I'm going down 1, my midline is here now. And that's where things should cross, okay? And so let's change up my color here. Let's do this in, like a yellow. Nope, yellow's probably going to be hard to see. Let's just do this let's do black, okay? So instead of starting at 0, 0, we're going to start here. We're going to go down to 3 down to -3 instead of -2. We're coming back up. We're crossing right at the midline, coming back up to 1, and then back to our midline. Oh no, it just auto did that. Okay. There we go. Okay. So it's very similar, right? It's just down 1. All right. So, if you can kind of see, we've been really building towards this, right? We've been on this for a long time, and we're just adding another detail, another step. Okay. Now, we got a long one. All right. I'm going to say that if you want to pause and try this, go ahead. If not, that's all right, because we're also now including a phase shift. And, if you want to give it a try first, go for it. If not, I'll clear the air on this one. Okay. Okay. So if you tried it, I hope you got it. All right. We got a lot going on here. All right. We have an A value of 1/3. So we have a compression or a shrink. There's no reflection, right? We have a B value here of 1/2. And we have a C value of pi. All right, I know there's a minus there, but if you remember from the last lesson, it was a minus C originally. So we're going to have to do a phase shift, and we have a vertical translation. So we have everything going on in this one, all right? But we're going to start it the same exact way, okay? So let's see what we got here. All right, we got an amplitude of 1/3, all right? And the next thing we need to do is calculate our period of 2 pi over 3. Or, what am I doing? 2 pi over b, okay? B is equal to 1/2. So we're going to plug in 1/2 there. That's 2 pi divided by 1/2, or that's just really 2 pi times 2/1. So our period is 4 pi, okay? Now, lucky us, because our period is 4 pi, breaking it into pies is just, breaking into 4 segments is just a difference of pi, okay? So I go to my graph, I'm going to start putting that pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, and notice how I'm leaving room because we also do have a phase shift, okay? All right. Now, our phase shift, if you remember, let's bring this all the way back because it's been a minute here. It is C divided by B, all right, because it's written in this form right here, the common form. So we need to take the C value and divide it by B. So phase shift, C divided by B. So that is pi divided by 1/2, okay? So again, write it this way, keep change flip, so it ends up our phase shift of 2 pi. Now this was a minus here, so we're going to the right 2 pi, okay? So let's draw some stuff here. Let's draw our original before the phase shift, and then we'll draw our phase shift, okay? And then we'll focus on that vertical. So this was a sine. It had a amplitude of 1/3. So let's go 1. Let's actually make this a little bit bigger or spread out so it's easier to see. And so that would be 2/3. That would be 1/3. All right, so we got a small area to work with here. And I'm going to draw it without the phase shift, then do the phase shift. Okay, so this should have gone, see, it's sine, and we're going up. So starting here, I go up, down, back, here. Okay, now if I include the phase shift, that's right 2, so I should start here. Up, down, back, over. So that red one, let's go red as phase shift. Okay. Now in blue, we're going to do our vertical translation. So this has a +2 at the end, so it should go up 2. All right. Now let's do our midline first. Okay, so our midline is going to be all the way up here, so I probably should have done my numbers a little bit differently. Okay, and I'm also going to kind of draw, this is just to help me kind of see where it is up here, but it started at 2 pi now, and it's ending at 6 pi. I'm just doing this because now I can kind of see that, hey, it's going to go like this, right? Because I could see where it starts, I could see where it finishes up here, I can see kind of halfway through is there. This is just helping me organize it right there, okay? Now, it is still going up 1/3 from that, so that's 2 1/3. That'll below be 1 2/3. And let's see if we can get this. Should kind of look like that. Okay? So, in green, we had our original. We phase shifted it over to get red. And then we vertically translated it up to get blue. All right? Now, this one had it all in there. Okay? And that's okay. It's a little bit more work. Not every problem will be this much, but you just want to break it down. All right? I recommend graphing your amplitude in the original period first, then dealing with your phase shift, and then dealing with your vertical translation. Now, technically, you could do your vertical translation first and then your phase shift, but then if you do your vertical translation first, you're already up here, and then you have to move over, and you don't have the benefit of the things written on the axis, okay? So I highly recommend doing it in that order. I think it'll make it easier, okay? That's all I got for today, everyone, and good luck. I'll see you next time.